All right, now the next visual that I want to walk through is something that's a little bit unique to Power BI, and it's extremely powerful. It's one of my favorite visuals. It's called the KPI. So let's head back to our exec dashboard tab. And remember that we used the card visual to kind of create these KPIs right here at the top of our report page. And while we are showing those big numbers, those KPIs, technically these aren't KPI visuals. And the problem here is that even though we know that AdventureWorks as a whole drove just under 25 million in revenue, over 10 million in profit, 25,000 orders, we're lacking context. And what I mean by that is that unless we're really close to the business, we really don't know if these numbers are good or bad. Are they going up or down? How do they compare against forecasts or projections or company benchmarks? That's the context that we're missing here. And that's exactly what KPI visuals are designed to provide. So check this out. We're going to go to the Insert menu, drill into the visual options, and down here in that Gauge, Card, and KPI category, we've got a KPI card or KPI visual available here. Now, instead of just showing a single value, now we have two additional options called the trend axis and the target. So the trend axis will allow us to visualize trending over time, almost like a sparkline effect in the background of the card. And the target gives us that context we need. This is telling us whether the value that we're seeing is good or bad. So the target might be a fixed benchmark value, it might be a forecasted value, it might be a previous period value. There are many, many different ways to create valid context. So in this example, we're going to start by showing total revenue. And you'll see nothing in the card quite yet until we populate that trend axis. And this is telling Power BI, what date granularity am I looking at here? Because I don't want to just see total revenue aggregated. We've already done that. I want to see revenue for a certain period of time. And let's look at the current month revenue in this case. So let's grab start of month from our calendar lookup. And now check it out. We see a big revenue number, but it's not the total, not 24.9 million. It's 1.8 million, which is the current month revenue. And because our trend axis is monthly, now we see this monthly area chart in the background, kind of providing that trending context as well. But here's where the magic happens in the target pane here. Remember in the DAX section, we created measures for previous month metrics. Let's go ahead and grab previous month revenue and use that as our target. And by doing this, we're essentially saying that all AdventureWorks cares about is beating the previous month's value. And because in this case, the current month revenue did beat the previous month, 1.8 million compared to 177 million, then we see this conditional formatting, the value shown in green, we get this check mark icon, and it gives us that quick context to know, okay, yes, this month's revenue is good. We're up over last month. So that's looking good from a build standpoint. Next up, let's do some formatting here. First thing I want to do is update this title. Again, this is another way to show context by helping users understand exactly what they're seeing here. So I'm going to change the title to monthly revenue. And we're going to use our standard kind of title approach, Seago UI, size 10, and centered. That looks good. Now for the callout value, we have a few options here. First thing I'm going to do is change the font just to be consistent. This time let's use Seago UI bold at a 30. We're going to resize this visual quite a bit. And note that we can change the display units. So this is a bit more precise than I need. So let's change the units to millions in this case. It's going to default to 2 decimals, which I think in this case looks pretty good. So that's the callout value. You can see you can toggle on or off the icon, that check mark. You can customize it as well. And the trend axis, this is where I'm going to do a little bit more work here. So note this direction option. This is great because by default, it's going to assume that when numbers go up, that's a good thing, right? Which is true for things like revenue, profit, and orders. But what about returns or return rates? That's a bad thing. We want to see those numbers go down. So direction gives us the option to do that and say, hey, you know what? We actually want this trend to be going in the opposite direction. Really handy feature here for these KPI visuals. And the other thing I want to change here is just to be a little bit more colorblind friendly. You know, reds and greens are pretty bad combinations to use for people who are visually impaired. So what I'm actually going to do is simplify things a little bit. And for good and neutral outcomes, I'm going to kind of use that gray, like business as usual. We're growing, it's good. I only really want to draw attention to cases where something is bad. So I'll keep this red to indicate a bad trend. And I think that will work quite well for this dashboard. Last thing, let's drop the transparency of that background area chart. Make it a bit more subtle. I think 10% looks pretty good. And that's it for the trend axis. Last thing for target label, this is that kind of subheader under my KPI value or my callout value. And all I really want to do here is drop the font size a bit to about a 9. I want this to be subtle but still readable if you need that level of detail. And instead of this vague kind of generic goal label, I'm going to change it to previous month. Again, just adding as much clarity as I possibly can to this visual. You can also toggle on that percent distance to goal. I like it, gives us even more context. And I think that should do the trick from a formatting standpoint. So now let's just kind of resize things a bit. I'm going to make this about 175 pixels wide, shrink the height down to something like that. And these are going to live right here beneath my weekly revenue chart. You can kind of shift things around a little bit to make them fit however you'd like. But I think something like this looks good. And now you know the drill. Now that we've gone through all that work for formatting and styling, let's copy, paste it 2 more times. We're going to make 3 of these KPI cards. And we're going to use our alignment tools to make them perfect. So shift, select all 3, head to format, align the tops, and distribute horizontally. So that looks great. I love where they're positioned. Now all we need to do is customize these next 2. In this case, we're going to show total orders here, and we're going to show returns in our 3rd KPI card. So let's go ahead and build out the second one. This time we're not showing revenue, we're showing total orders. There we go. Trend axis, start of month still works. And instead of previous month revenue, you guessed it, we want previous month orders. All right, so we see red, we see a 0. Looks a little bit weird. The reason why it looks weird is because our display units are still set to millions and orders are on a totally different scale here. So let's go ahead and jump into our callout value options. And we could either do something like thousands, or we could do none or auto. I think showing the whole value here, just given the scale, kind of makes sense. And last thing we need to change is the title. So instead of monthly revenue, this is monthly orders. Looks good. Now similar process here. Let's go ahead and just start with the title. We're going to show monthly returns while we're in there. Let's build it out. Swap total revenue for total returns and swap previous month revenue with previous month returns. Okay, same thing. We've got to change the display units here in the callout value options. Again, I'm going to do none just like we did for orders, just because returns are on such a small scale. And the last thing I need to do here, like we talked about, is update the trend axis option, because in this case, we want returns to be going down. So in this case, low is good. That's going to change the 166 from a bad story to a good one, because last month we had 169 returns, so we're down 3. And with that, I think we've created our KPI cards. They're looking great, and they do a nice job adding that context to our report.